I've always been fascinated by how things work. I remember one of my earliest thoughts of awe about science was looking at the sky in South Dakota, where I grew up, to see those billions of stars, thinking about depths of time and the infinity of space, futures that are not yet within your grasp, really fascinated me. Fishing is a little bit the same way. You put the hook in the water, you have no idea what's going to come out. It's unpredictable, but there can be great rewards.
When I get on the horse, I just completely feel natural. I develop the bond with them, so they really get to know me, and they feel more comfortable. And they loosen up on the reins, and they go with you. They understand you. It just really relaxes me, and I just enjoy it. I think because of cancer, I want to live my life to the fullest.
You want to go first, or do you want me to win? What? You want me to go first? Yeah. First.
As a parent, it must be devastating for any incurable disease to strike your child. It's just unimaginable. So anything that can be done to make that stop is on the positive side of humanity.
Here's you, this is your bone marrow transplant party.
I'm at the Ronald McDonald House, I think.
Yeah, it's at the Ronald McDonald House.
I remember this day because
When I was 2.5, I was diagnosed with stage 4 Tcell acute lymphoblastic leukemia cancer. And it was terrible how sick I got.
We were eating dinner together as a family, and Katie just got sick.
We took her into the doctor and they did a blood test.
We knew we were in trouble. When the doctor came in, the doctor was crying. And he says, your daughter has an extremely aggressive cancer. She might not make it through the night.
It was like somebody took a knife and stabbed it through your heart. It was just raw emotion at that point.
I can only imagine how hard it was to be on my family. I imagine them always being sad. I began treatment right away. They put me in an IV machine.
When Katie was diagnosed, her cancer was so aggressive that it took 3 chemotherapy regimens to get her into kind of a temporary remission. So there was no real hope that available chemotherapies were going to work out. When we realized that the standard of care was not going to be able to help Katie, we thought about, could you imagine some people spend their entire lives trying to find a cure for cancer? And what might that be like? And how much hard work and how much under the microscope or in the lab or all those things that go into that? And what dedication it takes to work on a project that you know may not come to fruition ever, and it's definitely not going to happen overnight.
The answer is curiosity, wanting to understand something at the most fundamental level. When we started our work, we were driven not by the desire to find drugs, but to understand the nature of the chemical steps that make enzymes so critical at making life possible in human cells. Basic science is critical for all future advances. Understanding how cancer operates, for example, requires you to understand all of the pathways in the cell that are linked into the cancer. But when you answer one question, it never solves a problem. It only leads to 2 more questions. So we had no idea we would ever really get there.
Katie was continuously getting sicker and sicker and weaker. Well, the bone marrow transplant was going to probably be Katie's best hope. Katie responded extremely well. I think both of us knew there was this period of time where you could relapse. So it was a waiting period, just a day-by-day wait and see.
There are a number of difficult steps between thinking about an enzyme that you're interested in and moving on to the design of inhibitors. We spent years working through methods to make those compounds. Tackling a new problem is a little bit like fishing. You never know what's beneath the water. It's a combination of unknowns. It's unpredictable until there's a tug on the line. Seeing the fish, getting them into the boat is like the completion of a good experiment. Finally, you have the truth. You know everything about it. When we first knew we had a very good inhibitor, then it's a great sense of satisfaction, but that does not guarantee you'll have a drug. In order to be a drug, there has to be no toxic side effects. It should be orally available. So we were very skeptical that any of our discoveries would ever make it over all of those hurdles.
Just before we got to that 100th day, a couple of the test results started to go the wrong way. It was evident Katie's cancer was coming back. The doctor said, you know, we can go back and we can give her some of the chemotherapies that we'd given her before. On the other hand, if you guys just want to take Katie home, we would understand. Nobody will ever hold it against you. 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks is all there's time is left. Maybe some of the doctors had lost hope, but Katie never did. And because she didn't, we didn't. And we were going to fight every day that she fought.
My dad, he started researching and just going out there looking into everything, and finally he found an experimental drug program.
Fortunately, one of our compounds that we developed turned out to meet every one of those hurdles for safety, oral availability, tolerability, side effects. But it's beyond our capability to try to scale that up and do clinical trials, so it's essential for us to partner with pharmaceutical companies that are capable of doing that. I was so confident that this compound would work that I was willing to invest that time.
I had been doing my own research, and I had come across a company called BioCryst Pharmaceuticals. And I saw that they were developing a new drug, and it hadn't even been named yet. It was just entering phase 2 trials. And it was using a different type of inhibitor. It just wasn't normal chemotherapy. It was going to go about trying to attack the T cells in a different manner than we had tried. So for us, it made sense. Even though this drug had been approved for adult trials, there was only one team that had approved it for pediatrics, and that was the Denver Children's Hospital in Colorado. And I called Dr. Leah Gore.
Within the next 24 hours, the tests were run.
And within 2 days, Katie was receiving the new drug. We were really thinking at that time, God, we hope this works. But if this can help the next Katie, that's a good thing too. "14 days later, Dr. Gore called us and said, she's in remission. There's no cancer. They could not find any leukemia cells in her body. It was amazing.
When I saw that result, just as a graph in the laboratory, we knew that this was going to be a really significant advance. When you hear that something that you've developed could be useful to save lives, it's beyond comparison to anything else that can happen.
I'm just so thankful to be here now. As my family calls it, a miracle. When I think about the researchers and the scientists who are dedicating their lives to creating these drugs, they're the real superheroes because the outcomes from these drugs is extraordinary, like the drug that cured me. If I could say anything to Dr. Schramm is, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for you, and thank you so much.
Having the first drug at Einstein to make it into approval for clinical use is a huge surprise, pleasure, and success for us, and we hope it won't be the only one.